Hi, and welcome everybody back to another episode of Intuitive Guidance with Torniamo. Today, I have the beautiful Michelle with me, who is the founder of Butterfly Academy of Psychics, which I think is a beautiful name. You know, the notion of a caterpillar, so caterpillar becomes a butterfly, right? And the journey of going on that. But before I go too deep into my analogy. Welcome, Michelle.
You. Thanks for having me.
Michelle is a very much a kindred spirit, and I have loved to have her on my journey with me through my own growth and also seeing your own growth. Michelle, I'd love to open up with, you are a fellow intuitive, fellow psychic, fellow spiritual seeker. Where did where did all of this start for you?
I was laughing to myself. I thought probably we'll have to do this in section by section because for me, childhood was the start, and it was to me the natural world is within the connectivity with spirit, with the divine. So at that time, I just very much felt the magic always around me, always hearing, seeing, feeling, very dreamlike, was my norm. So, where did it begin? Um, I feel more so when I started to go to primary school, and at that time it's always been around the age of 5, and then you truly have an understanding your world is not necessarily other people's worlds.
Mm,
So, in the way that I was always connected with what I perceive as guidance, spirit, the magic, other people weren't. And that became more apparent the older I became. Um, and then as life went on, I think more so, even more so apparent, because my parents, one was Catholic, one was Christian. So church life was very much part of my life, connectivity as a Christian and a spiritual individual that connected with spirit. And then being aware of some of the things at that time, what that was being said in church. And that really made me think about, well, if some of the things of what they're saying is wrong, what then does that make me? I was a child at the time, and that was very confusing. But then I always felt that connection with the divine, with my guides. So, and it's really funny because now when I work with people, I always come from a place of what is your intention? And one thing about children, they're so pure in a way, they don't, unless they're taught certain things, they don't understand it as being good or bad. And I knew the intention from my heart was always to do good, or my perception as good. So within the church community, I found that quite difficult in that some of what they were saying about um, connecting the living with the dead was very negative, and that was part of my life. I'd always heard things, seen things, and just allowed myself to be. But that's where it started, very young, very early. I didn't talk about it. I would share little things with my mother, who was always very encouraging, which became more apparent as I aged, that she knew. She said she was told that I was going to be a special child anyway, hence why she never discouraged me, which was
mm,
lovely. So that's where
mm,
I started as a child.
mm. And where did it, like at one point, what point in your life did you decide you went, okay, this is now what I'm doing full time? Like you stepped into this space and you just went, I'm gonna do it. Like, at what stage in your life was this, and like, what preceded that?
Okay, so I'll start with what preceded that. So, my father died when I was more of a teenager. And at the time, it was a big hoo-ha because no one ever divorced in my family. But my mother and father had divorced, so they were living separately. And my dad literally came to me in a dream and had said to me that he had passed. He didn't say to me, it was a case of what I was seeing, feeling, beautiful white room, all of us as a family. It seemed as though we were at a party and everybody was going over to the corner. And I said, well, what's in the corner? You got to show me as well what's in the corner. I was a teenager at the time. And of course, then I saw my dad within the coffin. And then I woke up and I thought, oh my God, what do I do now? How the hell am I going to tell my mum that this? She was a nurse at the time and did night work. And I stayed up all night just contemplating how am I going to do this. And she was so beautiful. When she came home from work, I made her a cup of tea, some toast, sat her down, and then I said, Mum, I've actually had a dream. And then I told her the details of it. And on Saturday mornings, I always used to visit my grandparents anyway. And she said, no problem, go to grandma, it's fine. I will sort this out. Please don't worry about it. Um, and I just thought, okay, she's going to deal with it. And whilst I was at my grandparents', I told them what I'd seen and how I felt about it. And in those days, because now, of course, everybody has mobiles, but those days you had dial-up telephones. And my father was meant to be in Birmingham at the time visiting his family. So she was ringing them. And then, of course, they said he wasn't there. So then, anyway, she phoned everybody and was becoming more and more frantic. This was happening all whilst I was at my grandparents'. And then my oldest brother went round there to check on him. And in the end, it turned out that they needed to kick the door off because he had had a heart attack and was literally lying there dead. And then I got the phone call at my grandparents'. So from that moment on, it was very much what, because even at school, digressing, I'm going off, but even at school, I was told so many things, certain things were easy for me. And then when this happened, it was, well, there's another side to this work which doesn't feel very comfortable now that it's my father that has passed. And sharing that, how that is shared, and then how that information is used. And I've always ethically bringing me back to what happened to me as a young individual, thought about that. My mother was fantastic, again, very supportive. Losing a dad is really hard. So
Hmm.
that's what preceded all of the work. And then because where you just perceive luck, I'm intuitively being told. But when real things, and they real things did happen because I'd think them, I'd see them, and then they'd happen because I'm more of a prophetic dreamer as well. Um, but that's where it brought it to my reality. I did close off at that time, I must admit, because I was going through grieving.
Sure.
And then, of course, when I left school, it was a case of very much shown what I would be doing professionally, and then use that for a long while until it came to a stage of sometimes talk about the wounded healer.
Sure.
And I like to dance. So it wasn't just to do with dancing, it was to do with I had a car accident and it had affected my hips, and I actually had to have a hip replacement. I'd still use spirit. I'd still worked with them for the higher good, helping individuals, mentoring, coaching people within my professional life, even within banking. But when I was literally told that I needed to have my hip replaced, that brings you to a time of quiet.
Mm.
And for me, whether you see it as prayer, meditation, a bit of both, I was always very prayerful and meditative. And in that quiet time, it was just as though you've used this for a long time to benefit people. Um, but it's a time now to assist more people. Because at that time, I hadn't really, how shall we say, come out. Because of some of the thoughts, some of the feelings attached to how it was perceived by the church as being, wicked, um, and a whole host of things. So I hadn't come out. For people that were close to me, they knew who I was. They would just more call me a seer.
Mm.
But when you're told to help more people, then you just think, what's next? And that's what I thought, what's next? And how do I navigate this? So do I keep going?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was really, really funny because being in banking, and I was in banking nearly 17 years, and anything that I do, I put my heart into it, and I love banking. It's a very dry subject, but of course, money and finances affect everybody. So you can always, there's always a person behind the money, which is a level of connectivity again. And where I was at this stillness, this time of quiet, and I had left banking at the time, I was more within local authority, assisting people around health and social care. And it was just as though, how am I now going to do this? And it was really beautiful that I found a place called the College of Psychic Studies. I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
how I
sure.
found it. I don't know how I found it, but I found it. And
Well, it
I
found
just
you,
thought,
right?
huh? Of course it
It,
did. I
it
because people say, how did you make the connection? I said, honestly, I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Because
it found you,
internet,
yeah.
even in the early 80s and the 90s, we weren't like yourselves, younger people, always on the phone. That wasn't the done thing. But I found it. And I just thought to myself, and again, going through so much with hip replacement, I had actually thought that I would just go for a healing session
Mm.
and just to check the place out. And it was really bizarre at that time because a person who's a good friend of mine now, he was outside talking like we are now to his
Mm.
guide. And I thought, he's having a cigarette and he's having this conversation with what perceived as fresh air. And you're like, and this is the norm, is it? Prior to me going in for a healing session. But as part of that healing session, and again, receiving so many messages because everybody needs to feel safe when practicing. And I was reassured as part of that healing session with my own guidance that this place was safe for me. And
Mm.
literally before leaving, I had enrolled to do a foundation course to understand, is what I perceive to be magic or connectivity, is this real? And to have that viewed in a different way. And I know what happened to my dad and various things that's
Mm.
happened throughout my lifetime, but I wanted somebody else to actually say, yes, it's real.
Sure.
Mm.
So, thank you so much for sharing all of that so openly, and sorry to hear that you had to go through that with your dad at such an early age. That must have been, very challenging, to lose a parent at that age at such a um, formative time. I suppose fast forwarding to today, and you're still continuing working with spirits, and I'm sure you've been on quite a journey. And I mean, it's incredible and amazing that you sort of started off in banking and then found your way into this more spiritual space. And I think so often, actually, having some time in a corporate setting is actually a good idea because you also get an understanding of like how most people experience life, right? Because most people will have a corporate job, and if you've never had a corporate job yourself, you just don't get it in the same way, right? Because it is a weird, odd phenomenon that most of us, like, for one reason or another, consent to is normal. Anyway, how are you working with spirit today? Like, how does it work? Like, how does it work for you? Like, how does it come? How does it feel? What is that, what is that experience like? Like imagining that somebody is watching this or listening to this and perhaps have had a similar experience like you had when you were a child or with your dad. Like imagining somebody is going through a similar thing and they're like, is this normal?
So, how is it today? And I will say that it changes.
Mm,
Um, None of us stay in a static state. We transform as the world is transforming.
mm,
I will say that sometimes, so where shall I start? Everybody is an empath, definitely. We're all empaths.
mm.
We've come here this lifetime to feel. Um, may not feel in the same way I feel, but for a long time I was very protected, to be fair. So I do digress, I'm sorry, but I'm taken to various
Go for
places.
it. Go for it.
Okay. So more when working one to one or even with individuals, I was always very well protected. If I chose to have a look at how they were feeling, I would feel how they're feeling just to check that they're okay. But me as an individual, as an empath, um, did I didn't take upon their feelings, and no one ever should take upon anybody else's feelings. But I worked very differently. As time has gone on, the energy has changes, the energy has shifted. We always talk about guides or how we receive information, and I will always say to everybody, we are all so unique. So even in what I will share, it doesn't mean I know you definitely don't receive in the same way, but we receive. And over time, I've received in different ways. Guides. I'm just sort of running through things really quickly. So my guides have definitely changed. They changed earlier on this year. So it was just as though I do have some guides that are always there for me. My ancestors, they're always there for me, and that is always a nice place to be because you know them. You may get to know more of them, but my ancestral guides, I always feel at home with. When my guides change, and we're all different, some people don't see or perceive them as guides. I'm going to say that because everybody's
Mm.
so different, but I do perceive them as guides. And whereas I would have one guide or another guide, but they were all very separate, I had what I would say, I won't name them to you, but I would say they are a collective energy. And they came in at the beginning of this year, and I thought to myself, what do I do with this now? Because that changes how you then work with clients, with students. You have to have an understanding how they're going to work with you. So we're all very different again, and I would just say that I placement for me is very is easier because we all receive information in different ways. Because this is a collective that I'm working with. I hope I'm not spacing people out, but because this is Because this is a collective that I'm working with. Just put them all to one side where I feel comfortable in working with them. And I just receive information very differently, um, because the world is changing. And I would so that's more to talking about the guides and navigating the guides. And we all need to navigate the guides. I find ancestors very natural for me. Um, but my guides and how that changes on occasion, and that is to do with my energetic changes and what my new path is going to be. I also need to navigate that. But we also, for me as well, when I'm talking about being an empath and feeling, it is about the world around us and that connectivity to the world, to feel her pains. And although COVID was an awful time. It was an awful time for how many people were lost. It was such a beautiful time as well because I felt that it gave Mother Earth a break. It gave
Mm.
Mother Earth a time for us to truly connect with her in all her beauty. And I really felt Mother Earth had a time of healing then as well. Um, as well as Mother Earth, we know that we can't dismiss the planets. We can't dismiss the planets. And as I've changed and grown and understood things, and I think our learning is huge. Our learning is all we are constantly learning, just like doctors and nurses. You're always upgrading. You always have to know about new procedures, no different than within our world. And it's really important. And whereas I would always agree with what the astrologers were saying, etc., there is more of a feeling for me with the planets as well and how those align and how those now affect me. I've always been a moon girl. I would want to run out naked, except for my neighbors, in the moon. But I've also truly understood the power of the sun, and people that know me personally will know that the sun's beauty and the vitality that that gives is just as powerful as working with the moon. But it's all the planets, and I've truly understood that over the years, working with all the planets and the understanding of that, because everything relates back to nature. It relates back to nature. So how do I work now? It's changing, it's navigating it, and also working within AI,
Mm.
working with individuals as well. And everything is changing, and I do just, and that's, it's really funny, we had our conversation earlier. It's just a case of where we're being asked to bring in new things, to change things, not to, for me, not to see it as complicated, where I've just gone with the flow and accepted this is the new pathway. Things have flown a lot easier. So I've removed some of that resistance, because even with guides, I'm like, what? Changing guides? You stay. But clearly, change is required. The world is changing.
Mm.
So not always I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable when some of my guidance has been here for a while. Um, I haven't always felt comfortable with what's happening in the collective or with Mother Earth or with the planets, but you feel that, you understand that. And then for me, I always bring it back to my heart connection and that level of peace and understanding that in my craziness, my soul decided to come back this lifetime. And therefore, I just ground myself again and say, okay, everything that's happening is happening for a reason. You've
Mm.
chosen to be here for this reason. What's next?
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. So you're the founder of Butterfly Academy of Psychics. Talk to me a bit about the journey that you take your students on.
So for me, um, and I always feel, I hold my hand up, marketing and things of the liking, I need to learn those things. However, it's really funny that people who are meant to find you always find you, and more so prior, even within COVID. And I love connectivity and people's energies face to face. And I was one of those that said, I'm not working via Zoom. And then, of course, COVID happened and those things were removed. And my mind was blown because I had students from China, from America, from places all around the globe, which really, really surprised me, but not because it was meant to be. Everybody is different and everybody's
Mm.
journey is different. So, historically, I've liked to work in groups. I work with very small groups because I, for me, everything is about the transformation, hence why I was given the name Butterfly Academy. And I know that people work in very big groups, but I've always tried to keep my groups no more than 6 to 8 people so that you get more than one-to-one time for them to understand in who they are. So for the individual, there is an understanding of who they are because many of us, that level of acceptance, even for, I'm sure even you, Tor, that level of acceptance is real. Well, we say it very easily, acceptance, but it's huge. You
It's huge.
question, it's huge. You
Yeah.
question why this, why that, why me, but it's meant to be. So there is that understanding of self, and part of that needs to be done prior to then looking at, okay, where are we now? And then let's look at who, as part of looking at who they are, how they feel, what they sense. Because people will tend to do this regardless. We all
Mm.
have a level of knowing. And that's part of this acceptance. This is just who we are, just like me at, a young age at primary school saying, I had one teacher, she always used to make me laugh because she would change things in the class and I'd just come in and say, Miss, it's this. And she'd say, no, 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 no more sweets for you, Michelle. Just, I'll give you some later, she'd say. So that, our norm may not be somebody else's norm. So it is understanding about where is your starting place because everybody is different. And although people will come in at different levels, I will definitely say people come in at very different levels. And even when I was at the college, I was just told, go back downstairs. You're not this level. You should have been in a higher class. But you need to find your foundation. And I always say to people, regardless of what level you think you are, I'm going to start you at foundation because there are basics that we need to understand. And those basics will then help you in looking after your energy, bringing it back to you because it's about this sustainability. I would never want anybody to start this work, even if it's never to share, but to start this work and then to experience burnout or for things to go wrong. So it
Mm.
starts at the foundation. What does that mean to you? And I work through various things so that they understand the basics and the discipline of looking up. Because everything to me is energy. My eyesight's terrible, but everything to me is energy, and it's your understanding of your own energy first, because you're going to, if you choose to, work with other energies, but you have to understand thyself. So
Mm.
that's a starting point for my students, doing the foundation, having a very good understanding of what I perceive to be the basics and their energies. Then nearer to the end, we start talking about the next stages, which leads into the novice. And the novice is then more the training stage of working with spirit, of working with higher guidance, how you connect with them. Um, but even prior, that again, the basics, going back to them, because that's where everything really needs to start from the foundation. And much of it is about intention. Why do we do what we do? And many of us don't even, we don't think about, oh, I'm going to do this. Why are you doing it? What's the intention behind it? And that's where, as I said, going back to the foundation course, it's getting that level of clarity, the understanding, because that will help many to start being very clear. Have I been confused about various things? Because yes, I was brought up in the church, but actually, because my connection with spirit, with higher guidance, I'd always had a level of clarity. And as I said, for me, it was just as though everybody else, I wouldn't say bonkers, but just didn't see what I saw.
It could be a bit bonkers, you know?
Yeah, but they just didn't see what I saw. And it was okay. I get that now. I'm at primary school. They definitely don't see or feel as I do. So the individual also has to understand intention, and that's part of the foundation as well, and looking after themselves because empaths and how their energy is used. I do
Yeah,
things in a
sure.
very, very ethical way. And then we move on to how we open, how we close, connection with the guides. And as I said, everybody is uniquely different. And I always say to people, if it doesn't resonate, leave it alone. If I say something that doesn't resonate, it may not resonate now, it may resonate later, but if it doesn't resonate, it's absolutely fine. Much of my learning, my understanding did not resonate initially. And then it's really funny how spirit drops things into me, or reminders. Oh, we did show you that, maybe 5, 6 years ago, and you dismissed it. But I tend to park things and then pick them up when they're more relevant. So anybody looking for whether they see them as spiritual advisor, see and feel if it's somebody who connect. As I said, in COVID, it was mad when I had people in China contacting me. And again, it resonated because they're my tribe. Many were female. I had men as well, but many were female. And many were like me because they had gone through various experiences in a younger age. And that part of resonating with somebody, there was automatically this connectivity. But it is about bringing people through a journey. I won't rush anybody. Everybody has to do things in their own time, in their own understanding. People may choose to take a term off and then come back. But all of it is around bringing in that clarity of assist. I see the guides. I didn't really think it before, but it's real. It's a case of they want the best outcome for me. When I was younger, and again, I digress, and where they were telling me things about various men in my life, I didn't listen. I didn't listen. And I admit that. Why are you laughing? I admit that now to my students. I say to them, don't do what I did. There's that song, Promise Me, son, not to do the things I've done. Walk away from trouble if you can. And I'm saying to my students, don't do what I did. I thought, well, you're trying to control me. You've to been with me since I was born. I want to do it this way. I want to venture. I want to see what the danger is like. And of course, it was always my downfall. And then as I became, are you laughing? So rude. And then as I became older, I thought, you know what? I'm using my guides to assist others in my mentoring, in my coaching, even in banking. They're good at this. Why am I not listening to them more? I
Hmm.
would listen to them on the financial stage, more the job offers or what I should do next. But when it came to particular areas of relationships or I wanted to do things in a certain way, I did not listen, to my detriment. And it's really lovely that the more I age, the more I'm more open and I'm actually sharing. Don't do what I did. They're working for your highest good, especially where you have such a strong connection. Why are you opposing them? Yes, we have. He's laughing. Yes, we have free will. And it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
but
People come to you for a reading, of course. They, again, free will. We work with our higher guidance. It's a partnership. And I view my guides very differently now. I remember when I was younger, I always thought of them as, well, they are higher guidance, but I literally put them on a pedestal. And
right.
then the more that I aged, it was as though more companionship, this partnership, they're here to help me this lifetime. So why would you dismiss what they're saying? So for the students, very much the same. On occasion, and it makes me very uncomfortable, I'm sort of shuffling around under the table. I will share with them parts of me, of where I somewhat went wrong. Because let's be fair, lifetimes, especially we're all choosing to come now, it's not easy. It's bloody challenging. It's very hard. And even in some of the things that I've gone through recently, my guides, I wouldn't say they have a go, but they literally say, excuse me, why are you working alone? And again, I always see that as my ego. My
Hmm.
ego, I came this lifetime. It's for me to go through these challenges, although I clearly see challenges for me have been a growth spurt or strengthened me in some way. Um, but the guides have always been when you are in those difficult, challenging times, ask, ask, ask. And my students, I even listened to a call, I think they called me in by mistake. And I say, do the work. And part of me saying, do the work is about asking as well. We're not alone. Nobody is alone, and we're meant to ask. And we don't often do that. But I perceive that as me being egotistic. Um, so there are things that I teach that I also at times confess. This has not always been my way. But for everybody, you can only do the best that you can do. But the higher guidance is the most beautiful thing, understanding. And I see the whole world as magic. And even doing this work, it brings me back to my younger years where all the factual, the things that we are taught, the exams that we go through, the workplaces, where it be corporate, health, social care, whatever it is, it brings you back to this is all a place of magic and let's make the most of it. And part of that has been with working with guides. So I love transformation. I love to see where people are and when they some leave and come back, but it's always beautiful to see how they've transformed, how they've worked through their challenges, but done so with more clarity and understanding. Um, so it's been a beautiful journey, beautiful,
It sounds like
but
it.
also rewarding, rewarding for me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you, yeah, take your students on a beautiful journey of like foundations and novices and then more advanced. And it sounds like they are in very safe hands. And I know that they are. I know that you have to leave in about 10 minutes or so. So, to start bringing the podcast to a close, I am going to offer you a short tarot reading to end it all on. So, I'll pull you two cards. How's that sound, Michelle?
Absolutely fine. Now pull the right two cards though.
The cards are
Well, you've
always.
never disappointed. You've never disappointed.
Do you have a question? Your face was like, is this going to be the first? Do you have a question or intention for your reading today?
This time of the year is always so beautiful. This time of the year, more around Beltane, I would say, but this time of growth is always beautiful, transformational, the change and nature around us. So I'm just going to be open for things to come. My intention is always to be open as well as to serve and share. So, but my intention for the cards, do I have to share it?
I'd like to, yeah.
There is still something around being open, and there is still something around working with those that perceptionally I would not be aligned with.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
sure. Yes, it does.
Not easy then.
So the two cards that I have pulled for you, the first card that I have pulled is the Eight of Swords reversed. So as you can see, upright, this is a woman. She's sitting there. She's blindfolded and she's also tied with this rope. Of course, the card is reversed, which tells me, because I mean, as you were talking, I was like, well, this exists only in your mind, right? The perception of working with people that you are not aligned with. This is, of course, an illusion that
Of
lives in your
course.
mind. And as you can see, the thing with this woman is that all of these blindfolds and ropes and everything that is there, they are actually very loosely held. And even like the knot is actually right in front of her by her hands. And she can very easily untie that. It's right there. She's choosing not to untie it. Like she's keeping it there. And this is why the card is reversed. And this is like the invitation to go inwards of like, what is it that's making you think that this is not aligned? Because that is most likely untrue, basically. And this is the Eight of Swords, which tells me that I think this energy is going to specifically change around August. Like there's something in the August, later summertime, where this is going to shift quite drastically. Like there's going to be a moment of realization. We were like, oh, well, that was not true. And you're going to have an internal shift around that. And again, with it being the swords, it's all in the mind, right? The second card that I have pulled for you is the Page of Swords, again, reversed. I think, the thing with the Page of Swords upright is that, to me, the Page of Swords is like the energy in the tarot, which it's almost like it's like someone who's like truthful to a fault. Like they would just never lie, and they have like impeccable integrity and impeccable honesty, almost to, but also it's almost like it lacks flexibility, right? There's almost something in that staying in that truth where that becomes inflexible. And so I think what also, I mean, I've never actually interpreted that card in that way, so there's always something important here. There's also, I suppose, somewhere within you where there's a lack of flexibility. So, like, you were looking for openness, which means that maybe there's some areas where you've become too, it's this way or no way. And I think maybe there's an invitation of flexibility in your mind,
Mhm.
basically, which is probably the core message of this entire thing. It's about flexibility of mind.
I know
And
I said that, I spoke that as words. The world is changing,
yeah,
we need to
yeah,
change.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so there's a part of you which has become inflexible, and you need to invite in some mutability. Yes, that's what's happening around you right now. And I think it will specifically emerge around the August period. So
Well,
that's
that's
what's.
it. No more from your two cards. Come on, Tor, I want a little bit more.
That's,
Tor, I want a little bit more.
that's so funny. Nobody ever asks me for more. That's why I was so taken aback, which I was that's hilarious. That is hilarious. And I can
Come on,
feel
I want a little bit more. You're
my face is
digressing.
becoming red and everything. I was so taken. What's the word I'm looking for? Somebody did it this morning as well. It's clearly a day to catch me off guard, basically. Because I was doing a reading for somebody this morning as well in a group setting at the studio, and someone also said something, and it completely caught me off guard. What was
The world is changing, Tor. We have to change this.
which came out of her, which came out of her mouth, and I was just like, "Did you just say that out loud?" And she was like, "Yeah, I just said that out loud," which I thought was quite funny. So, what more is happening within these
Summarize
cards?
for me, Tor.
Well, the summary in you were asking about openness and so on and so forth. The cards are saying that there is some flexibility in that needs to be invited in terms of working with people who are on the line. I also do think, though, with the purge, the Page of Swords is that moving on from that specific question, there is somebody in your life. How close to you are they? I wouldn't say it's like first degree separation family, but there's somebody who's quite close to you. Somebody is lying, right? Somebody is telling a story which isn't true.
Oh, we know this already.
There's a person who is lying to you, and this is unfair, and it is causing problems that doesn't need to exist, basically. Somebody is lying, and it's creating problems that doesn't need to exist, and this has to be addressed for your own sense of well-being, basically. So that's a part of also what's within this energy. Um,
Does it say anything about love relationship? I'm pressing you now.
well, I thought so. I was also there is because again, but what I was going to because there is something about love in this card. So I was going to say something about love, and I was like, we're live. There's people listening to this. Should
Yes,
we actually go
people
into
have a
love?
relationships.
Um, Again, there is something here which feels. What's the word I'm looking for? There's something in these cards which around love which isn't flowing exactly as much as it could, right? So there's something there which is feeling constrained almost. Like I'm just getting this feeling of this like a relationship or something that you're exploring, which is just not feeling liberating. And I think that if there's something in that space where you are feeling constrained, then that's not the right thing for you. It doesn't mean that it's not coming, but there is something which is like blocking you from doing that, basically. So, yeah, if there's any relationships that feels a bit like that, you know, you may want to think about it.
Right, you're right. I always have to be in relationships where I can flow, where I can be me. So
Yeah,
you're
and
100% right.
there's something here which is saying that that might not be happening. Um, all right, then. Now you're going to pull a card for me. We have 4 minutes left before you have to shoot.
Ooh.
Now I'm going to throw you off guard, basically.
Let me clear this deck. And do you have an intention?
Sure. Talk to me about my work.
As soon as you said that, it was just as though I was hearing that there is this thing about realistic. And I said, is he being too safe or not being open enough.
Hmm.
And it was just as though these cards were very close to you. I haven't even pulled a card for you yet. Um, and I always see or picture things as when things are too close, you can't see the full picture. I love the bird's eye view and looking down
Hmm.
on things in that way. And I'm intuitively feeling that don't hold these cards too close to you because it's cards, it's more than one thing. And there is something about, when I talk about from the above coming down, but being open to other things of which you may experience, of which may come in, and not just saying that's not for me. It's really funny. So let's just choose. Can you just tell me when to stop? I like your energy on the card, please. Just tell me when to stop.
Sure. All right, stop.
Are you happy there?
Hmm.
Well, from above, bird's eye view, not keeping things close to your chest.
Discovery.
And I love it because for you, you're definitely so supported. You're so supported, and you know this, even if you look at, in the background, what I perceive to be spirit, you're
Hmm.
so supportive. And for many of us, everybody's so different, but you're meant to bring so much to the world, and all root chakra cards are about this foundation. But I do feel within this discovery, you're asked to be potentially new things as well coming in. So, and
Hmm.
not doing things in the same way because the discovery card is about, and it's really funny, we've talked about being open for the new. The discovery card is just allowing yourself to flow in this new energy, career wise, when things drop in, which you may initially feel that's not my energy, totally different than me. You may just think this is not for me, but remember who you are within bringing things to the world. And although it may not sit, it felt as though it doesn't, some things may not sit within the spiritual field. It's all a nonsense, our perception. You are the person that will, even if it's making a cup of tea, will bring that aspect of you into the tea making.
Hmm.
So very differently, how I'm feeling about this with the discovery. It does, and I know you had shared some things with me before, but it does feel as though, because I was hearing pause and not so much what's past, but in time to come and your decision making, do pause and think about the discovery. And are you doing things that feel quite organic, or are you willing to just somewhat go outside of that comfort zone, like the bird eye view, look down and say, actually, there's scope for this. And even if I am making a cup of tea, it's me that's making this tea. How can I do it
Hmm.
in my way?
Hmm.
But my guides always make me laugh because they're saying that you know that you will always stand in your truth.
Hmm.
And that's really important. No matter who is asking you to do this and, tamper and change it because this is the way I like it done, for Tor, he will always stand in his truth. So, yes.
Thank you. And just with the terms of the cards, just as a like, is it actually to work less with the tarot and just channel instead of? Like, was that a part of what I was hearing, or was it not that?
Tor, you'll just come. I have to be careful what I say.
Go for it.
But for many people, it's even when it was really funny that I was speaking to somebody this weekend about it, and they said, "Oh, I'm not into the cards," when they receive a reading. And I said, actually, regardless of what type of card you use, sometimes that makes an individual feel comfortable.
Hmm.
Yes. But actually, you're channeling anyway.
Sure, I agree. Yeah.
You're channeling anyway, so you've asked the question, but I'll be very clear. It's not about the cards. You are
Okay,
channeling
fine.
anyway.
Fine. Yeah, yeah. No, no,
Yes?
because it just sounded like that maybe that's what you were alluding to there, to use the
And
cards less,
depending
basically.
on the individual or whatever aspect you're being asked to work within, for some, because I know because I do tend to, some people feel my energy very strongly, and that could be uncomfortable. However, I always say I am if you're working with me, there's a level of connectivity anyway.
Sure. Yeah,
But
yeah.
for some, using the cards feels more comfortable. But you know
Mm.
you're channeling. The
Mm.
cards are still being interpreted by your channeling.
I agree.
And you
Yeah, yeah.
stand in your truth. You're not going to lie.
Thank you so much for coming on, Michelle, because I know that you're out of time and you have to leave in a moment. Thank you so much for coming
And
on and
thank
sharing your
you.
story. It's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Take care. Lots of love.